Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you my list for this Halloween special, Skeletons versus Zombies. And of course, I'm going to say Skeletons first because, as you can guess, I will be piloting the Necrons, the Skeletons, the undying legions of Necron warriors. And that is exactly what we built and are bringing here today. Because in this spooky spectacular, I am going to try to break my old reanimation record set in 9th edition for 102 models in a single game. And how will I do that? Well, I am bringing every single reanimation aspect to this list, and we'll see what happens. I mean, that's the biggest bulk of it is every reanimation tool is in this list. The only thing I didn't include was a Technomancer, because Feel No Pain is not a reanimation. No, these guys have to fall down and stand back up, and that is what we did here today. So as always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications to get notified on all the content we bring you around the channel, including Lane's zombie list with his 120 Poxwalkers and the inevitable battle report that will be coming out on October 31st, Halloween. So for this list, a little bit of change of the manifold from what I'm going to do, from what I've done in the past, is what I'm going to do with this today. Because not only am I going to be giving you what I'm bringing in the preview of that, but how I'm bringing it, as I already have the army deployed. Mostly because it's a lot of models, and we do work full-time jobs, and some of us will have to get up for work the next day. And this one might turn into a very long game. Lane has 120 Poxwalkers, which is only a very small percentage of his army, and well, I have 100 Necron warriors. And the convergence of Dominion. That is right. I don't know any other battle reports anywhere else you've seen it, but here in 10th edition, the convergence of Dominion will be in a list. I'm thinking of them as my tombstones for my spooky list, and I will be using them and using their abilities. And then we have Ghost Arcs, and then we have 100 warriors. All right, so for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over the camera into handheld mode, and we're going to talk about this and go through this all. And all right, let's take a look at this list. All right, here we go. Here is my deployed Necron skeleton army. That is right. I said 100 Necron warriors, and I meant it. Now, there are 20 Necron warriors that are not currently on the table, and that is because they are in my Ghost Arcs. So let's pan across the table. We'll talk about some of the design choices with the unit, and then we'll pan back and talk about the deployment. Starting over here, we have a 20-man squad of Necron warriors with gauze flares. They are led by a old-school pewter Necron lord, and he will have a resurrection orb for this battle, because Res Orb is resurrection. Moving to it, we got the Ghost Arc hiding back there to be able to provide reanimation buffs over onto two of the Necron warrior squads that are within 6 inches, depending on anything that may get targeted in the early points of the game. Behind, we have the beginning of the Convergence of Dominion chain with a Convergence of Dominion nicely put up there, center of that objective marker. It will not really be able to do anything for secondaries in that, but it is centralized to be able to give a 6-inch aura off of it to reroll reanimation rolls for those units. And then we have the Canoptic Reanimator, which is also centralized, but its reach with its 12-inch aura actually covers every unit in my army. Except for the 2 in the back corner, but that's not a problem because they're not within range of or line of sight of most things. Moving over here, we have the Gauze Reapers. These ones will be led by my Overlord. And the reason I took an Overlord was because you can only take 3 Lords. He also has a Res Orb because, again, all the resurrection is here. And he's standing right next to the second Convergence of Dominion, positioned to help these units here and buff them, as well as providing some additional cover in that area and link the last convergence into the back corner. Moving over, we have our third squad of Necron warriors. This is a Gauze Flare unit. This is an unpainted unit that I'm using specifically so that we can see where these units are and models are so things do not get lost, because we are looking at 80 Necron warriors, so I have included some differences in these models, one for Lane and also for you guys to be able to see where and what certain models are part of units when it starts getting all bogged together. Then we have the Ghost Arc in the back. This Ghost Arc is positioned here, so it should not be able to get line of sight on this thing on turn 1 unless you go really deep to a corner. and it is able to provide its 6-inch buff to these 2 Necron warrior units for reanimation purposes. Then we have our last squad of Necron warriors, which is a 20-man squad with Gauze players. Shocker. They are also led by a Necron Lord, which is an old school model. There he is. There he is. And we got one of those over here as well, too. See, 3 old school pewters to lead my army. This squad is also Gauze Flares 20-man, has the Convergence and Dominion position behind it to give it the 6-inch boost, although this one over here is also decently positioned for it. These 2 Convergence are actually in position for 2 separate things. One, they are both engage on all fronts capabilities because they are more than 3 inches away in the table quarter. And secondly, this one back here is wholly within 9 inches of my table corner, so it technically could complete a secondary as well if necessary with that table corner when we start moving up the map. So, why we deployed like this? I want to be able to make sure that I am able to move and keep as much reanimation buffs on everything as possible. As you can notice, our deployment we are doing is Dawn of War. Lane is aware of this, and we already set it up. This is to help us because we are playing 2 rather large infantry-based armies that we're not very seasoned with. So it makes sense to kind of do some of this early, to deploy these armies early. Now, the ways I keep these things clean, because there is one more thing I didn't mention. Kind of mentioned. There are 2 10-man squads of Gauze Flayers inside each one of the Ghost Arcs. Reason being, I'm running the Ghost Arcs. I want to run them at their maximum capability and potential, which means putting warriors inside. That also allowed me to get up to 100 without having to put a whole bunch more characters and stuff. And I mean, did I have to? No, but it's kind of would have been my own, like, I would have felt like it was incomplete and needed something more. And this way, at least, I feel like, much like Thanos, and as you can see, all my motives on different things with Infinity Gauntlets on everything, I like when things are balanced. And I feel like this is a balanced list from a perspective standpoint. Now, I want to keep with everything, able to have the reanimation buffs and able to do the reanimation stuff because that's the goal. But I still want to be able to push up on objectives. So initially, it came down to a choice. Which direction do I want to go? And the final decision to which direction I wanted to go came down to this piece of terrain that we had over here. Now, this piece of terrain right here, and I'll point it out, is actually on a base, and this is a rune. So as long as I'm behind this base, I can't be seen. And the same for over here. We're using kind of the Games Workshop terrain setup. This also qualifies as line of sight blocking because of the base that it gives. So those 2 pieces protect me. And yes, we should have some bigger stuff on there, but this is, for aesthetic purposes, me and Lane have agreed upon how those pieces work and how they function. Now, once you're touching this piece of terrain or touching this piece of terrain, once you touch that plastic, you immediately can be seen through. There's no question on holes, walls, everything else. Once you touch it, you can be totally seen through. And that's our way of kind of balancing it back out, since things like this are not 5 inches tall. So they should not technically give that runes aspect. We're basing it more on the base. And if we really wanted, we could get the walls necessary for it. But that's how we are playing those because of the bases that we have for those. And we have the same deal going on over here, where Lane has that same corner that he'll have built up for himself that he can hide into with like characters and such. Because of that, and because of that piece of terrain, mostly this big guy, I was able to put the Reanimator, the Ghost Arc, and the Convergence in a position to hide to be able to have late game controllables that can also influence the center or objective marker. From there, with those guys being able to be hidden over there, it didn't really provide me much range or leeway to be able to go into this zone. I could have started to breach off this way, but now with where the Convergence of Dominions were, and where this one specifically was, the next one has to be wholly within 12. And trying to put a Convergence here to hide behind this rune and stretch over into this corner to be able to get the one within 9 of this corner was really ugly and basically impossible. So over here is more protected for that, which then meant I'm leading the Convergence over here and over here to get in the corner. Why? because I want to try and do something with the convergence. I want the convergence to score some points on a secondary in any way, shape, or form, because this is the one and only time I may bring them on the channel until the codex hits. Maybe, who knows what, but that's what we're working with. So because of that, this is where my line built to make my front, or my attack on these two objective markers, to be able to start moving out and progress across the field. I have 2 units here that, when shot, can start to reanimate and grow towards the center and then move to the center pretty easily, as well as being protected with some good reanimation buffs over there. And the same can be said over here. Now these 2 units will probably want to go forward, but once they kind of get over to this objective marker, we're really going to start to wheel towards center. It would be nice to get my reanimator into this position right here, using the runes in the middle to hide behind. If I can get into that position, then we can start to make an attack on lane's home objective marker and start pushing through that way. And if we can get the reanimator there. How do we get him there? Well, we need a pathway. And the best pathway for the reanimator would be to go this way and continue up, as the rest of my army continues to just move forward with the reanimator and all the other buffs reanimating and creeping guys across the field to barely ding this objective and then start wheeling towards the center. We move warriors onto this side when we can get over here and have the reanimator back here with maybe a ghost arc supporting it as well, thus having the second ghost arc as well back here. He's able to start moving up into that pattern. That's the plan. That's the plan. That's where we're going to march the zombie line. So we're going to try and just make a strong left flank and then wheel towards the center after we can tag this objective out here. See what we can make happen from that. We do have the 2 10-mans inside of the ghost arcs, which can drop off and just hang out on objective markers wherever I may need them to be, and try to, just hold the objectives while no one's able to see them. So there is the list, the tech, how I plan on playing it. We are doing a Dawn of War mission. We'll talk about this during the game as well, too. And yeah, everything else for the mission, all that, tune into our battle report, and we'll talk to you about it from there. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and look forward to playing this game. It's going to be a wild one.